Okay, so today our lesson is on multiplication patterns with decimals. So we're going to learn today how patterns can help you place the decimal point in a product. So in our first problem here, it gives us a little story problem. So Cindy is combining equal size rectangles from different fabric patterns to make a postage stamp quilt. Each rectangle has an area of 0.75 of a square inch. If she uses 1,000 rectangles to make the quilt, what will be the area of the quilt? Okay, so we're going to use patterns to find the product. So we're going to do a couple steps here. Okay, so sorry about that. If we look at what they have here for us, we have 1 times 0.75 equals 0.75. Okay, that's pretty simple. We know that. So when I go down and look at the next one and I'm doing 10 times 0.75, the way I look at this is I look at how many zeros are in this 10. Okay, that means that those numbers of zeros are telling me how many places I am going to move that decimal point. Okay, so when I'm moving the decimal point, I am looking at where it starts right before the 7 here. Then I'm only going to move it one place to the right. Okay, and I'm going to move it one place to the right. So that makes my new answer 7.5. Okay, and I know that I'm going to move it to the right. This is another way that we kind of talked about it is what I'm using. These are whole numbers. 1, 10, 100, and 1,000 are whole numbers. So if I have whole numbers, okay, that means I'm going to move to the right. Okay, when the way I think about that is W and R are towards the end of the alphabet. Okay, so when I'm moving to the right, I'm moving towards the end of my number. It's just a little trick to kind of help you remember which direction. So if I'm multiplying by a whole number, which I have 1, 10, 100, and 1,000 are all whole numbers. Okay, so I know I'm going to move to the right. So now let's look at 100. If I do 100 times 0.75, there are 2 zeros in 100, so I know that I'm going to move that decimal point 2 places to the right, which gives me 75 as my answer. Then if I look at 1,000, 1,000 has 3 zeros in it, so I know that where this decimal point starts, I'm going to go 3 places to the right. Oh, look, 1, 2. I don't have a third space, but if you remember how we've talked about before in class, that all numbers, no matter what they are have zeros that just continue after them on forever. Okay, we just don't always write them all. I mean, it's just really silly to write them all, so we just don't write them. Okay, so we've moved 2 places to the right, so I'm going to move that third place and add a 0. Oops, sorry, that looks like a 6. Add a 0 at the end of my number. So when I do that, my new answer is 0.0750. Then my decimal point's over here. If it helps you to put zeros after it so that you know where that is, and if you want to take that 0 off, that's fine. Either way is fine. Okay. Sorry about that. So now let's go back to our question. It says, if she uses 1,000 rectangles to make the quilt, what will be the area of the quilt? Well, we know, so I'm going to go down here and look at 1,000, and if she uses 1,000 rectangles, what's the area of our quilt going to be? It is going to be 750 square inches. Okay, so not too complicated. Once you get the idea down that it's a whole number, we're moving to the right. So as we're multiplying by increasing powers of 10, how does the position of the decimal point change in the product? Remember, the product is our answer. So the position of the decimal point is the bigger this whole number gets, the 1, the 10, the 100, the 1,000, the bigger it gets, the more places my decimal point moves to the right. Okay? Then let's look at another example here. Now we're looking at powers of 10, but we're looking at them in decimal form instead of a whole number. Okay? So these are in decimal form. Okay? So the interesting thing about decimal form is when I'm looking at decimals, instead of moving to the right, I'm going to move to the left. Okay? So again, we're going back to our alphabet. D and L are towards the beginning of the alphabet, which if I went from D to L, and I'm going to move to the left towards the front of my number. Okay? So if I look at 1 times 1,353 equals 1,353. So if I have 0.1 times 1,353, I am going to look at it another way here. How many numbers do I have after my decimal point? I only have one number after my decimal point. So that means I'm only going to move one place to the left to get my answer. So my decimal point would be here, right? I just don't have any, I just have zeros after it, so I wouldn't write it with a decimal point. So if my decimal point's here, and I'm going to move one place to the left, which gives me the answer of 135.3. So now let's look at 100ths, okay? Down here. There are two places after the decimal point here. So I'm going to start again up here where my decimal point is, and I'm going to go two places to the left. So that makes my new number 13.53. Okay, so George's model of the Willis Tower is how many feet tall? It is 13.53 feet tall. Okay, because we were working with the 100ths. Okay. All right, so we're going to move to the next page and work through another example. So this gives it us, and I don't think I can fit it all on one screen, so forgive me. Follow along in your book, okay, so that you can see all of it. So it says Josie makes $45.75 selling jewelry. Mark makes 100 times as much as Josie does, or as Josie makes by selling his custom furniture. Sorry. Whew. Carlos makes 1/10 of the money Mark makes by selling paintings. How much money does each friend make? Well, it tells us that Josie makes $45.75. Then up here, it also tells us that Mark makes 100 times as much as Josie. So 100 times, we're going to put that 100 here. 100 times. Okay, so it's wanting us to see the pattern. Okay, so that's what we're working on here is with these is looking at the pattern. So remember, 1 times anything is itself. And right here, you don't have to put the dollar sign. So then 10 times $45.75. Remember, there is 1 0 and 10. So that means my decimal point is going to move to the right. Remember, I have a whole number, so my decimal point is going to move to the right one spot. Okay, so that leaves me with $457.05. So if I'm talking money, I'm going to add that 0, right, to show me that it's 50 cents. Okay, I wouldn't want to just leave it as a 5, my personal opinion. If it makes sense to you and you're fine with just the 5, then I'm fine with that. I would not count that wrong on a paper. Okay, unless it's your final answer and it's asking for money, I would add the 0. So now I'm looking at 100. So I have 2 zeros in 100. So I'm going to go from that decimal point and move 2 spaces to the right. So my new number would be 4, 5, 5. I'm going to add that comma in there. So it's $4,575. Okay, I'm going to scoot this down a little bit. You won't be able to see the whole thing, but so it says Josie makes $45.75. Mark makes how much? Remember, we're looking for 100 times as much as Josie. So Mark's doing pretty good. He made, oh, I didn't put my dollar sign, $4,575. Okay. Now we still have one little friend over here. We need to look at Carlos. So Carlos, it says that Carlos makes a tenth of the money Mark makes. Well, we know how much Mark makes, so it shouldn't be too hard to figure out what Carlos makes. So a tenth as a TH at the end. So we are looking for a decimal here. So we are looking for 0.1 because one spot after the decimal point is the tenths place. So if I have 1/10 times how much Mark makes, okay, he makes a tenth more than Mark. So Mark made $4,575. Okay, so we have to multiply those. Okay, it's asking us again to think about those patterns. So we're going to look at 1 times, so we're going to bring down that 4,000. Ooh, I just made that look like a decimal point. Sorry about that. 4,575. So 1 times anything is itself. So I have 4,575. Now I need to bring down that tenth. That number up there. So if I'm looking at decimals, go back and look at your page before if you need to. I'm looking at a decimal. I'm going to move to the left. Remember, I'm going to move towards the beginning of the number. So my decimal point would actually be right here, right? So I need to move how many spaces? I only have one number after the decimal point, so I only need to move 1 space to the left. Okay, so that would leave me with $457.50. Remember, you can add that 0 on there because we're talking about money. So we'll just kind of help you a little bit there. So let's see if I can get this up on one screen. Carlos makes $457.50. Okay, so now we know how much each of the friends made at the market. Okay, so now we're just going to do a couple of each of these. We haven't really talked about this. We talked about it in success period this morning. If you remember, powers of 10. We've dealt with those a couple of chapters ago, but powers of 10 in section A here, 10 to the power of 0 just means that we're multiplying by 1, which is the same thing as 1 times 4.7. Ooh, that's a bad 7. This little thing's hard to write with. Okay, so 1 times anything is the other number. So we're going to write that down. So then 10 to the power of 1 is the same thing as 10 times 4.78. So 10 to the power of 2 means that I'm putting 2 zeros, two zeros. So same thing as 100 times 4.78. Then 10 to the power of 3 is the same thing as 1,000 times 4.78. Okay, it's just a shorter way to write it. So now I'm looking at whole numbers. Okay, even though they're we're talking about powers of 10, these are still whole numbers. So all this is telling me is, remember, there's 1 0, or you can look at it as there's 1 up here. I'm just moving that decimal 1 spot to the right. Remember, whole right. We're going to the right. So 7.8, 4.78. If I move that 1 spot to the right, that gives me a new number of 47.8. Okay? So 10 to the power of 2 just means I'm going to move the decimal point 2 spots to the right. So 1, 2. So it would be 478. Okay? So then, if I'm looking at here, power of 10 to the power of 3 is the same thing as 1,000 times 4.78. So if I start here, I'm going to move that decimal point 3 spaces to the right. 1, 2, 3. Remember, there's those invisible zeros there, but we just don't write them down all the time. So my answer is 4,780. Okay. So let's look at B. Little refresher course. Whole numbers. They kind of switched it around. There's a whole number first, but it's not the power of 10. So we want to look over here for the power of 10. So 38 times 1 is 38. And then 38 times 1/10. Okay, if I'm looking with decimals, I'm moving to the left. Okay, so my decimal would be here. I'm going to move it 1 spot to the left. So that would leave me with 3.8. So I'm down here and multiplying 38 times 100. Okay, I have 2 spots after the decimal point. So I'm going to move 2 spots to the left. So then I have 0.38 as my answer. Okay. All right. Now I want you to go to the next page. And I want you to try 2, 3, and 4 on your own. So there are examples. Go back and look at those previous pages. Look at your notes. Which way did we move for whole numbers? Which way did we move for powers of 10? Which way did we move when we were multiplying by 10? Or I mean decimals, I'm sorry, on number 4. Okay, so go back and look at those notes, and I want you to try those, and then I'm going to put in the answers, and so pause this video, try that, and then come back and look at the answers that I have posted for you. Okay. So 1 times 3.19 is going to be, oh, doesn't want to work for me, 3.19. And then 10 times 3.19 means I'm moving 2 places to the right. Which is going to give me 1 place to the right. See, I make mistakes. It's all good. You just go back. Try again. So 3, we're going to move 1 place to the right. So that gives me 31.9. 100 has 2 zeros, so I'm going to move 2 places to the right. 319. 1,000 has 3 zeros, so I'm going to move 3 places to the right. 1, 2, oh, my invisible 0. Okay. 3,190. Okay. And then let's look at number 3, 45.6 times 10 to the power of 0. It's the same thing as multiplying by 1, remember? So that would just give me 45. Oh, my little pen just went crazy. 45.6. Now 45.6 times 10 to the power of 1 means I'm going to move that decimal point 1 place to the right. So if I move it 1 place to the right, I'm going to get 456. Power of 2 means I'm going to move 2 places to the right. I have 1 invisible 0. That would give me 2. So I have 4, 5, 6, 0, 4,560. Then my power of 3, I'm going to move 3 places to the right. So 1, 2, 3. 4,000, 5, 6. And I have 2 invisible zeros coming in there. So it would be 45,600. Now for our last one. Right, I have 1 times, so anything times 1 is itself. Then I have 1/10, and I'm multiplying it by 6,391. So I'm looking at decimals. Decimals I'm moving to the left, okay? Everything else I've done to the right. Now I'm moving to the left. So my decimal point is actually here. I'm moving to the left 1 space because I have 1 number after the decimal point here. So that's 639.1. Okay. Then I am going to multiply by 100. I have 2 places here after the decimal point, which means I'm going to put 2 places here. I'm going to move it over 2 places. So 63.91. Okay. I hope this all makes sense. If you are still struggling with it, please just give your best shot on your homework and we will go over it in class. Please just remember your homework is just a completion grade, okay? Please, please, please don't let it psych you out, okay? So on the homework, what you need to do is all of these questions, they're just like what we just did, okay? They actually even did the first one for you. So you're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Once you give 10 and 11 a try, you do not have to do 12. Okay. And then on the back of the homework, I need you to do all of it. So 1 through 6. Okay. I will answer any questions that you have on Thursday. Please, please, please let me know if I can help you then, okay? Thank you for sticking with me through my first one here.